guys. All right, today we're not going to do a lesson in our notes packet, but we are going to do some practice solving some word problems that involve some inequalities. So I'm going to do a couple examples with you, and obviously I'd encourage you to write these down since I'm doing some problems for you, and then you will finish the rest of this worksheet as the rest of your assignment for today. So let's start with the first section, which says write an inequality to represent the situation. So we don't need to solve the inequality, you just need to write one that represents the situation. All right, so number one says a suitcase must weigh less than 50 pounds. Okay, so you need to pick a variable to represent your object in the problem. Okay, so in this case, X is going to represent how much the suitcase can weigh, or you could pick any letter you want. I'm just going to pick X to keep it simple. And so in this problem, I would say X is less than 50. Okay, because X, what the suitcase weighs, must be less than, there's my keyword, 50 pounds. So X is less than 50, and you could even give the label pounds there if you want. All right, let's try number two. You must be at least 48 inches tall to ride Mr. Freeze. Okay, so this one is not quite as clear. Obviously, less than tells you exactly what inequality sign to use. Okay, but here's our keyword, this at least. So I always stop and try to think through, okay, could you be, so if X is going to represent how tall you need to be, you have to be at least 48 inches. In order to ride Mr. Freeze, you could be more than 48 inches, but you can't be less than 48 inches. So if X is representing how tall you need to be, you must be greater than 48. But then I also need to think through, okay, could you be 48 inches? So if you must be at least 48 inches, then yes, you could be 48 inches and still ride Mr. Freeze. And so this would be that X, how tall you need to be to ride Mr. Freeze, is greater than or equal to 48. And so it's always important to think through whatever the number is, could it be equal to that number or not? All right, so now you're going to try the rest of the problems in this section, and I'm going to actually jump ahead in this video and do number 9 and 10 for you as well, just so you see some problems in each section. All right, so we jumped on to this next section. The directions say to write an inequality to represent the situation and then solve the inequality. And when we solve the inequality, let's remember that we always need to graph and check as well. Whenever you solve, you always do the graph and check as well. All right, so number 9 says you have $78 in your savings account. You are buying a computer, and the minimum down payments, which means the down payment would be what you have to pay initially, you can make is $120. So write and solve an inequality to represent the amount of money you need to reach or exceed the minimum down payment for the computer. All right, so in these problems, it is helpful oftentimes to acknowledge what your variable is going to represent. So you can pick any letter you want. I'm going to go ahead and just pick X since that's the one we pick most often. And so if it tells you in here, you're trying to represent the amount of money you need. So X is going to represent the amount of money you need. So you should always identify what your variable is representing. All right, so if X is the amount of money you need and you have $78, then you have 78 plus X that you can put towards your down payment, and the minimum down payment that you need is $120. Now, the tricky thing here is you need to figure out which inequality symbol that you need. Okay, so you've got to read carefully, and just like we talked about in number 2, I always try to stop and think, okay, can I have more than 120 or less than 120? Well, in this situation, you need to reach or exceed. So it's okay if you have more than 120. Of course, if you're putting a down payment and you have more than what you need, that's going to be fine. So 78 plus X needs to be greater than 120. And then again, just like we talked about in number 2, you need to figure out, is it okay if you just have 120? Well, because it says you can just reach it, that 78 plus x, 78 plus the amount you need, could be equal to 120. So this would be 78 plus x is greater than or equal to 120. And just like we talked about when we did equation word problems, make sure that you're always solving for x. So in other words, there should be something on the same side as x. You should not have a whole bunch of things happening on one side and that be greater than or equal to or less than or equal to x. So again, x is a part of your problem that you are trying to solve it to get x by itself. All right, so this is now a pretty simple problem for me to solve. I'm going to subtract 78 from both sides because I'm trying to get x by itself. So that cancels and I get x is greater than or equal to, I'm going to need to do just a little bit of borrowing here. And I get that x is greater than or equal to 42. Now it is a word problem, so you need a label. And in this case, it is $42. So x, the amount you need, is greater than or equal to $42. All right, now I need to put that on a number line. And remember, on your number line, you can put 0 and then the positive and the negative of the number you need. This would be a closed circle at 42 because 42 could be a solution, or x needs to be bigger than 42. And then my last step is going to be to do a check step. So 78 plus x is greater than or equal to 120. And I should have mentioned this earlier, but hopefully you understand that because the order doesn't matter for addition, you could have x plus 78 is greater than or equal to 120. It doesn't matter which order you have those in there. All right, so I need to pick something bigger than 42. I'm going to just pick 100 to make this real nice and easy, but obviously you could pick 42, 43, 44, 45, 50, 60. Any of those numbers would be just fine. So 78 plus 100 is 178, and that is in fact greater than or equal to 120. So my problem is now done. I have written the inequality, I have solved the inequality, I have graphed and checked it. All right, now let's move on to number 10. I'm going to help you get started on number 10. It says you are at a library and are allowed to check out up to 25 books. You have already selected 9. Find the possible amount of books you can still select. All right, so my variable in this problem is representing the books you can still select. And again, I always just read carefully because whatever it tells you to find, that's what your variable is representing because that's what you don't know. All right, so you have 9, so I'm going to write that as 9 plus however many you still want to get. And you can get up to 25. So again, I'm trying to think through, can I get more than 25 or less than 25? Well, you're allowed to get less than 25, but you can't get more than 25 because you can only get up to 25. So this would need to be less than 25. And then again, I have to ask myself, could I get 25 books? Well, yes, you're allowed to get up to 25. So it would be okay to get 25. So this is 9 plus x is less than or equal to 25. All right, hopefully that's enough to get you started. I'm going to leave you here and you should finish solving number 10. So solve it, graph it, and check it, and then complete the rest of the problems on this worksheet. Good luck and have a good day.